Welcome to Rise and Thrive Women, journeying from surviving to thriving after abuse. We're your hosts, Susie and Heather, and we're so glad you're here. If you've experienced the heartache of toxic relationships, you know the feeling of being lost, broken, and unsure of where to turn next, and this show is for you.
We are here to inspire, educate, and empower women like you, no matter where you are on your healing journey. Together, we will challenge the misconceptions surrounding domestic abuse, explore practical solutions, and listen to incredible survivor stories that remind us all that there is a brighter, better future waiting for you. It's time to rise, thrive, and choose yourself. Let's begin this healing journey together.
Yay, here we are. How are you doing, Heather?
I'm great. How are you, Susie?
I'm doing good. It's been a whirlwind of a week, back to school week, and just trying to get my bearings again with that. But
Same.
it's good. It's all good. Yeah, I know you're dealing with the same thing. So it's nice to get a little time back in the day, but man, my kids are growing up fast. It's pretty crazy. So
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to miss this or be happy when it's gone. A lot of people tell me I'm going to miss it, and sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure.
yeah, it's a lot.
I don't know I will.
It can be a lot for sure. Yeah, I thought yesterday I might cry. My son, and I know your oldest started freshman year too. So it's a big milestone, starting freshman year of high school. And I thought maybe I'll cry when I drop him off, but I didn't cry. So maybe I'm starting to let go a little bit. But yeah,
Hillary says you'll miss it.
Yeah, I think we will when we're not in the thick of it anymore. But anyways, hi, Hillary. So today we're talking about why you feel anxious, shut down, or on edge after narcissistic abuse. And this is a really important topic. You and I are both super passionate about it. But before we jump into our episode today, we always like to talk about our Rise and Thrive Women's membership because we worked so hard on it. We think it's a really great space for women who are navigating abuse in their relationships or recovering from abuse. So, do you want to talk a little bit more about it, Heather, before we get
Yeah,
going?
yeah, like Susie said, we've worked really hard on this community. It started out as like a free Facebook group, and we really wanted a space where we could offer more courses, more materials, more education, and ability to meet in groups online. And so we spent, I think, a year almost thinking about it and creating it in our minds, and then like bringing it into reality. So it's a private off social media community just for women healing from narcissistic abuse and or toxic relationships, whichever one of those terms resonate better with you. Whether you're still in it, figuring out how to leave, or building your life after narcissistic abuse, there is something in there for all of you.
Yeah, there's tons of resources in there, like Heather said, trainings on narcissistic abuse, navigating the family court system, and much more. And when you are a member, you get access to all of our past workshops, plus any future workshops that we're planning on running, which we do have one coming up next Saturday, all around this topic that we're talking about here today, which is just the impact of abuse on your nervous system. So as a member, you get access to all of those types of workshops. We have bi-monthly group coaching calls. We're even doing a Friday night social this week. So if you feel like you want to check it out, you can get in there and even meet us Friday. And it's just a really super supportive space. And you can try it for free for 7 days. And we currently have it priced at only $19 a month. So it's a really, really great value. So
Yes. And it's not going to be $19 a month forever. I mean, Susie and I are meeting next week to kind of talk about that. So if you want to get in there and get locked in at $19 a month, now is the time to do it.
Yes.
The link to join is in the show notes. There is a 7-day free trial. I think Susie already said that. So it's risk-free, really. You can get in there, see what we have, meet us. And I mean, like Susie said, the Friday social is tomorrow. You'd be able to attend that and get full access to all of those things. There aren't any limitations for that 7-day free trial. So the link is in the show notes if you're watching this on my YouTube or Susie's YouTube. If you are watching this on Instagram, you can find it in my bio, the link to get in there. So we'd love to welcome you into that community. We've put a lot of work and time into building those materials. And so right now we just really want to welcome any women who are focused on their healing, focused on trying to get out, or even if you're still in it, trying to figure out how to set boundaries so you can survive. We would love to have you in there. There's nothing like being surrounded by people that get it. So
absolutely. Yeah. And if this topic we're talking about today is something that you're just particularly interested in and don't want to do the membership, we have a link to register for the workshop that we're running next Saturday as well. It's called Rise and Reset, right? Am I getting that right? Rise and Reset. So all around nervous system, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we're getting more into this topic. But we thought we would just start out by, again, talking, the topic we're talking about today is why you feel anxious, shut down, or on edge after narcissistic abuse. So we wanted to start kind of at the core of all of that, which is our nervous system responses. So many people out there probably have heard of the 4 Fs or the 4 trauma responses, but we wanted to take a little time to talk about that. Those responses that are kind of our stress responses or our trauma responses are fight, flight, freeze, and shut down. And we wanted to spend time talking about these because once you learn about these responses, you can start identifying them in your own life. And the goal is for you to see yourself through a lens of compassion and care rather than feeling like ashamed of how you're responding or judging yourself for having a bigger reaction than you think you should have. So just to get into a little more detail of what those 4 Fs are. Number 1, fight. And fight is not always physically fighting. In actuality, it's like really the opposite. It's not necessarily fighting, but maybe snapping at your children or your partner or raising your voice at your kids or just feeling that need, that drive to defend yourself over small things. Flight is what it sounds like. It can look like sometimes just feeling like you have to leave a situation or leave the room quickly when tension builds. It's just so uncomfortable for you. You have to get out of that situation. Or even just busying yourself to the point where you don't have to sit with your hard feelings that you're feeling.
That's mine.
That's me. Yeah, I'll tell you.
I'm out of there.
Yeah, you're like, peace out. Freeze is that kind of that deer in the headlights moment where your brain is actually kind of going offline and you're thinking with more of your primal emotions rather than that prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that forms thoughts and can process information. So you feel like your mind goes blank and maybe someone confronts you and you just can't find the words. And once you are able to calm down, you think back like, oh, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that? Because you can actually think clearly at that point. So that's freeze. And then fawn is really just people pleasing to keep the peace, maybe taking blame to avoid conflict, or just making yourself seem smaller or feel smaller so that everybody else stays calm and you can avoid conflict. That would be me. I would say freeze and fawn are kind of my go-to responses. So again, like once you recognize that these are actual like trauma responses that your body is having, these are survival patterns. They're not a flaw within you. You can start to understand that really it's just your body trying to keep you safe. And even though you may be out of the abusive situation, your body's still remembering. It's still remembering the trauma you went through. So what was your go-to trauma response in that abusive relationship most likely is still going to be your trauma response once you've gotten out of it. So if anybody out there, if any of these resonate with you, feel free to drop them in the chat. Like what's the go-to trauma response that you feel yourself having, or even just say me, me too. Like I get it. And that these are things I experience. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, that's just a little bit more about the 4 Fs. So do you have anything to add to that, Heather?
No, I think it's important to understand that whenever you're stuck in chronic, I want to say chronic psychological or emotional abuse, because if you resonate with the word narcissist or narcissistic, you have experienced high levels of abuse. And whether you realize it or not, it's abuse, and it activates your nervous system. And when you're in these long-term relationships with abusive people, or even have parents who have these personality tendencies that make them extremely confrontational or just kind of difficult in general, to make you feel like you constantly have to shrink to meet whatever, you know, standards that they have. It's important to understand that your body is going to stay in high alert even when you remove those relationships from your life. And so if you feel, you know, if you feel these responses creeping up that, you know, in what feels like a drop of a hat, it's normal. Like, I think that's the most important thing to understand, is there's nothing wrong with you or your personality. It's just your nervous system trying to protect you.
Right.
Um,
100%. Yeah.
so I think that's I think that's what's most important to understand, is to know that it's fixable.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how it shows up in your daily life. So mine was at work a lot. Like when I was going through, when I was going through my healing journey, or I initially started to heal, it didn't feel like healing at all. Really, it felt like completely breaking down. But
Yeah.
I felt emotionally unsafe in the workplace more so than anywhere. And I think it was just because I would pick up on, like, even if I would forget something, you know, like I was extremely hard on myself, and would be very critical of myself, or I would assume that, you know, people didn't think highly of me anymore, or things like that. So those are normal feelings. So feeling emotionally unsafe in vulnerable moments, overthinking or scanning for danger in safe situations. I think the example I used, my personal example, is a good example because I was safe in the workplace, but I was overthinking and constantly scanning for danger, shutting down when confronted, and people pleasing to avoid conflict, right? And those are all things that Susie just talked about in those fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses. But I think it's important to conceptualize these patterns happening even outside of relationships, right? So
For sure.
I would like to, I don't know, let me go back over here to Instagram. Me, not a so well crafted combo of them all.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. I think it depends, right? Like for
On the
me, it always
situation.
depended on the scenario, right? Like if someone was trying to give me advice and I felt judged, I may just shut down and feel like I can't trust them with any of my information anymore, and not rely on that person.
Yeah.
If they would tell me, I'm like, this is what you need to do, why are you letting this happen, or just things like that, I would people please and be like, yeah, you're probably right. You know, and even
Right.
if I knew it wasn't the right thing to do, I would I would just go
Just to
fawn
make
and
it
think, okay, well, maybe I'm overreacting.
right.
Something
Right.
like that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so if anybody has an example of, you know, scenarios in their everyday life, drop
Yeah.
them in the comments. We'd love to hear from you and just kind of talk through them and use real life examples.
Right. For sure. Yeah. I think the freezing and fawning are kind of my go-to responses today, but I would say coming out of um, abuse, like the immediate like months and years after that, I feel like it was more like the fight or flight, mainly the flight. Like I noticed myself having these big reactions for things that normally wouldn't set me off. So I think I've told you about this, Heather. Like I got a text message that was not very nice, and I was home alone by myself. My kids were with their dad, and I just remember like being so angry and like slamming the doors of my kitchen cupboards. Like I just like had to let the rage out because it just felt like consuming, you know. So I think that the person's comment that they're a combination of all of them, that's normal and that's okay too. You know, it doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. I think a lot of the response after abuse can depend on how long you've been out of it too, you know? So we're here to just normalize that and look at yourself from a place of compassion rather than that judgment and shame. So, yeah.
We do have a comment. Let me see. Let me go back to it. Constructive feedback feels like a personal attack. That one's a really good one, and it's really common too.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're used to being criticized in your relationship a lot and finally identified that that is not okay, then even when you're in a healthy place, that constructive criticism can feel that way. It can feel like an attack for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand. So constructive feedback, there's always an intent, right? Like the difference is the intent when you're looking at constructive feedback versus a personal attack, right? So the intent of constructive feedback is to help a person grow, improve, succeed, those sort of things, right? You want to help this person grow as a person, whereas the intent on a personal attack is to insult, demean, or hurt them, like intentionally hurt them rather than help, right? Like you want to make it worse. You don't want to help them improve or succeed. And then, you know, understanding the focus. So there's like the behavior, whenever you get constructive feedback, I think typically the conversation should be around like a behavior or an action or like the outcome, not the person's worth or character, right? An attack, they're going to attack your worth, they're going to attack your character. They're not constructive on a specific outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, that's a great way of explaining that for sure. Yeah, so we want to spend a little more time talking to you about just how do you make peace with what's happening inside of your body and stop shaming yourself. So I think the first thing we've already touched on already is just reminding yourself that you're not overreacting. Your body is remembering a time that was traumatic. So when your body's having these reactions, it's just trying to keep you safe and keep you out of harm's way. So I think just first of all, just seeing your body and these responses as an ally to you rather than an enemy can really change that, you know, change your mindset of how you're responding to things and shift you into a place of, okay, how can I manage this? You know, what are some tools? What are some ways I can resource myself out of these nervous system responses? Because you don't want to live in that survival mode forever. We don't want anybody to live in that place forever. And that's something that we will be spending a fair amount of time on in our workshop next Saturday, is just kind of identifying your go-to nervous system responses and having you reflect and think about how can you resource yourself out of those. Because depending on the response, if it's fight or flight or, you know, freeze or fawn, different things work better for depending on what type of response you're having. So it's just like, first of all, shifting that mindset so that you can start making a plan and finding some ways to get yourself back to a calm state. And I like this analogy you made, Heather, like, again, kind of thinking about not shaming yourself for this. If you think about if you had a best friend who came to you who has been running from danger for years, would you yell at her about being jumpy, or would you offer her kindness and a safe place to rest? So you need to start putting yourself in that seat and just letting yourself be and comfort yourself and remind yourself that you're safe. Because yeah, you wouldn't do that to a friend. So why would you do that to yourself? So again, we'd love to hear from you guys out there. You know, if you're thinking right now about how you can show yourself some compassion and show your body some compassion this week, like what would that look like for you? We would love to hear from you guys. Is there anything you do, Heather, when you're having these moments of, because I know we've talked about that, even, you know, years down the path, you can still get triggered by things. So
yeah, well, and I think that's the most important thing to make peace with, because even doing this work, I still struggle with these things, and I don't think they go away. they get less intense and they get easier when you are aware of them. It's really hard at first, I will say that. But I think the best possible, the best thing that I did for myself is to just become aware that I'm nervous right now. And I think the best way that I became aware is when I actually started taking supplements to help calm my nervous system. So like ashwagandha and passion flower and magnesium, that combination alone really just helped me, one, realize that I wasn't getting the sleep that I needed, which also, you know, like that also impacts your brain chemistry and can
Yeah.
make you groggy and high alert and extra cranky on top of everything else. But I think having those supplements and then, you know, whenever I felt my body kind of coming down, it was apparent to me that I was way up here and didn't even realize I was up there. So that was the first step, really, for me. And then realizing that whenever I would have the triggers, I would avoid them, which is, that was a mistake on my part, right? Like I would avoid them, I would run from them. And then whenever I would realize I was, you know, in a reactive state, I would shame myself for weeks.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
and
Totally.
so, and that's just, that was my pattern. And I think the best possible way for people to start to heal and like welcome in some of these uncomfortable feelings so you can heal from them is to, one, know that they're going to come, two, normalize that they're going to come, and three, start to plan. And I mean, we'll talk about, we have grounding techniques that we're going to talk a little bit about next, but have a plan to ground when you notice that it's happening, because when it happens, you're in the back of your brain, right? You're like, your amygdala is activated. It impacts your hippocampus, but the amygdala is the big deal, right? That's your primal emotional response. And when that's activated, your prefrontal cortex, like Susie was talking about earlier, that's your logical thinking brain, and it's not prevalent right now. It's not activated. You're back here. And so you're not going to be, sometimes you're just not going to be able to think logically, how do I fix this? But if you have a plan before being activated, right, to know what sort of grounding exercise to bring you back into that moment, that helps, because you don't have to think about it. You're like, oh, I'm
Right.
activated. Let me,
Yeah.
you know, let me name 3 orange things in the room.
Yeah. Or just, yeah, go take a quick walk and
let
yeah.
me start tapping, whatever it is that helps
Yeah.
me, like, you know, check my pulse. I got to bring my heart rate down. Anything like that ahead of time, it kind of becomes a normal thing.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah. A great way of taking care of yourself for sure. So,
how about you? Do you have any tips?
um, I feel like for me, I have to be sure in my like day-to-day routine, I have some sort of physical activity. So it's almost like a proactive thing for me to try to keep myself regulated. So I love to go on walks, just be outside, play tennis, get my workouts in. I feel like when I have that physical activity, it helps me not go into those like fight or flight responses as easily because I'm kind of getting that energy out.
Yeah.
So just like having that in my routine, but I've got a few go-to things I like to do. I like to like shake my nervous energy out or that flight or flight energy out. So I'll do that sometimes. Or I will, you know, take a little break, get myself outside, go walk a little bit. Um, I think those are kind of my two things that seem to work well for
Yeah.
me. So yeah. And I might
I
have
would
stolen your thunder on the next part. I
Oh, no,
realize
no.
we're already going into
Well,
that.
it's a perfect segue, but I would
Yeah.
also like to just say, if you don't know what your responses are, the best, like if that's where you are right now, the best possible thing that I can suggest is to start journaling about them, even if you don't
Yeah.
understand them. Journaling for me, I still journal. I don't do it here. I made a 30-day promise to myself, and I've done pretty well the last 3 or 4 weeks. But I do consistently journal. I will say that I journal at least twice a month. Here recently, I've been almost hitting every single day because it's that effective for me. But if you're trying to make sense of it, I think the best thing that you can do is to just start to get it out. Type it out if you're not a writer. Like type your notes out. Get a journal. Handwrite your in your journal, and then go back over it and start to kind of dissect what it was, right? Because that'll be your answer key. Like, oh, someone gave me feedback at work, and I like my inner critic went off and said, you didn't do this perfectly, you suck.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so I think it's important to journal about it, because you'll start to see very quickly, oh, these sort of comments kind of set me off, and then you can reframe your mindset on how to handle them better. Like, sometimes people are assholes and they are intentionally trying to get you react. And it's important to know, like, when there are people doing that and how to appropriately respond. And sometimes they're not. And so journaling about it is really going to help you nail down, like, what sort of comments, what sort of actions, what sort of noises, even like what sort of things are really impacting my nervous system right now, so that I can account for that, and I'm not like walking around here feeling completely dysregulated and like a crazy person all the time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you explained that really well.
I just went off on a tangent, guys. I'll get back I'll get back on track. If anybody has any questions or comments to add to that, please go ahead and drop them in the comments, and we'll get to them before we close. But okay, so that's a perfect segue, because I talked about mindset shifts. So mindfulness is going to be very important. Slowing down enough to notice what's happening in your body before reacting. And you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and say, if you are fresh out of abuse, this isn't going to be easy, and it's probably not going to happen automatically. And you're probably going to have a few moments where you're like, oh, that was bad. I went here to here. I mean, I did it over and over and over again. And not it was like family members that did. It was just like, rah! I was like ready to fight everybody for anything.
Right. Totally.
And so it's not going to happen, but being aware that something is dysregulated inside your body and slowing down enough to notice that it's happening is key. And then knowing that there are different grounding techniques, and we are going to share a few of them today. But if you really want to dive deeper into some of these things, please register for our workshop, Rise and Reset, coming up, because we're going to deep dive into more of this. But there's parasympathetic sensory activation, and there's physical connection. We will talk about those a lot more in our workshop, but it's important to know that sensory, so like sound, smell, taste, touch, there are different grounding techniques that you can do to kind of bring you back down. I know a really big one for me was smell. For some reason, like, I love the smell of cloves. And when I was writing my book, in the only way that I could slow down enough to write about my experience without spiraling was to almost set up like a whole ceremony for the morning. I had a whole routine, but I wouldn't start writing until I lit my incense, and I would have like different grounding incense. And believe it or not, it works. And I think the scent of clove is supposed to be grounding. So if you didn't know that, they have like clove spray. You could put different types of essential oils in a diffuser if you have one, or incense, candles, whatever. But I love clove.
I love the smell. Yeah, I do too. Or even like a cup of tea too. Like the warmth and the aroma of a fresh cup of tea can be really soothing.
Yes.
And it kind of targets multiple sensory, you get that touch, you get the taste, you get the aroma. So that's
Yes.
another
That's
really
a
good
really
one.
good one, Susie. I
Yeah.
think I do that. Look, I have my tea
Yeah. I
every
know
time
we
we
both,
go live.
yeah, you and I always have our tea, even it's like, I don't even want to know what the temperature is where you are, but it's like in the 80s here, but still I got to have my tea when we do this.
I think it's
So,
like 100 degrees outside and humid. So,
ugh, yuck.
but
Yeah.
and then
No, so,
there's physical connection. So, if you don't have, so one, if you don't feel safe being around people right now, you can even you can hug yourself. I know that sounds really stupid and cheesy to some of you, but sometimes if you need it, you can
yeah.
wrap your arms around yourself and hug yourself, or you can go and laugh with a friend, or go talk to a friend, get a hug, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as you get that physical
Yeah.
connection and you feel yourself needing that.
Right. Even a
Um,
weighted blanket can help that too. Get a weighted blanket, put it on you,
yeah,
because that kind of
I love weighted
replaces
blankets.
that if you don't have a physical person there, kind of that feeling of weight and something by you or on you can help. So
That is, do you have anything else that you would want to add to grounding techniques? I know a really good one for me is just walking outside barefoot. I know that sounds
Mhm.
silly, but you do get there is scientific evidence to support what happens whenever you put your bare feet in the grass. Um,
Mhm.
but it also gives you that sensory effect. You can feel the grass blades under your feet, or, in my case, I'm in Florida, so we feel the sand. We feel the sand, and we
Right.
don't have, the great Kentucky grass that I was used to anyway. So I
Yeah.
go to the beach a lot and I stick my feet in the sand. And so connecting with nature is a really good one, and it helps with a lot of different things.
Yeah. Listening to music is great, whether it's like soothing, soft, calming music if you're needing to get yourself out of that kind of freeze response. Or sometimes my go-to is raging music when I'm wanting to, get the fight or flight energy out. Do that and hit the punching bag a little bit.
Oh, I feel
Help does one works wonders. It's just a matter of finding what works well for you. But there are a lot of things that are within reach for all of us that we can go and do to
yeah.
help calm ourselves down. So it's like having that awareness, finding what works for you, and then having that plan, like you mentioned, of actually doing it when these things come up. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and if any of you want to share, drop something in the comments if any of these worked for you, or if you even have any that you'd like to add, we'd like to hear from them. And if you're catching the replay, we still want to hear from you. We would just have to come back later and respond. But
Yes. Do you see anything else on
I
your end?
don't.
I had any comments on mine today. Um, so yeah, I guess just to kind of wrap it up again, we'll be doing our workshop next Saturday. That's the 23rd at 11 a.m. Central Time. You can
Yep.
register for it using the link in our show notes, or if you want to just get into our membership group, again, all of the workshops like this that we're running are included in the membership. So you could even sign up for a month at $19 a month and be able to do the workshop on top of it.
Yep.
But the whole purpose of the workshop, the whole goal that we have in mind is to help people stop feeling hijacked by your body and by these nervous system responses, and to start feeling safe and steady and in control again. And I think you and I can both say literally every woman that I've worked with who has experienced abuse suffers from nervous system dysregulation, and most of the time they don't know that that's what's happening in their
Yeah.
body, and they do feel ashamed, they do feel frustrated with themselves. So that's why we really wanted to spend time on this today, and we put the workshop together because we want you to not feel like you're not in control.
Yeah.
So, and there are ways to work through these things, so
I
check
walked
it out.
around dysregulated for 2 years. I will say
Yeah.
that before I even had the language to put to what was happening to me. I
Yeah.
think the only way that I can describe it, I don't remember the terminology that I used when it was happening, but I remember feeling like I was in a panic all the time. I couldn't do anything right. Nothing was right. I couldn't sleep. When I did, I couldn't stay asleep. And so I just, that is the best. And I constantly said, what's wrong with me? And I feel like a crazy person. So, and I was in therapy, right? Like I did my therapy religiously because I felt like I was a crazy person and I just needed somebody to tell me that I was doing a good job.
Right. And what's happening in your body is normal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't get that. I got a lot of reassurance. I'm just saying, like, it wasn't until after we did our trauma recovery courses that I realized, oh, okay, I was just right. I had the language and the, to apply to what was happening. So sorry, I went off on another rant there, but I just think it's really important that if you feel that way, if you're like constantly anxious and you feel like you're in a panic, or like even if you feel like your ex is watching you all the time, like all of that, like that is normal stuff. And we just want to help you take control of yourself. Take the reins.
Yes.
Anyways, if you sound like, or if that sounds like something you're into, it's on August 23rd. And like Susie said, if you join Rise and Thrive, you get that free as part of the membership, along with all of our other workshops. So
yay.
I will stop talking now and close us out. If we don't have any comments, we don't.
Yep.
So thank you all for joining us on this episode of Rise and Thrive Women. We hope today's conversation has inspired you to take charge of your healing journey and nervous system. Whether it's a new perspective, renewed hope, or the courage to move forward, it is something worth celebrating.
And remember, your story is still unfolding and your past does not define you. Within you lies power, strength, and limitless potential. So embrace it. Trust and follow your intuition with courage. Be bold, be brave, and always trust yourself. Until we meet again, take care, rise above, and thrive. You've got this.
Yay.
Bye, everybody.